I, 29M, come from a family where nothing was ever good enough for my parents. My story starts way back when I was just a kid. Every achievement, every milestone was met with criticism instead of celebration. My parents, especially my father, 55M, had this habit of comparing me with my cousin brother, 29M, who was exactly my age. We went to the same school, which made the comparisons even worse. From a young age, I can remember the constant belittling. When I scored 95% in math, my father's first response was, "Your cousin got 98%. When I won second place in the science fair, my mother, 52F, said, "Why couldn't you get first place like your cousin?" Even when I made the school basketball team, they asked why I wasn't team captain like him. My cousin's parents, my uncle and aunt, would often visit with him. These visits were torture for me. The adults would sit and praise his every small achievement while pointing out my shortcomings. My mother would serve his favorite dishes while telling everyone how picky an eater I was. My father would show off my cousin's certificates and medals to relatives while my achievements collected dust in a drawer. The worst part was how they treated us differently when we both failed at something. When my cousin didn't get selected for a prestigious math competition in 8th grade, my parents consoled him and said there's always next time. When I faced the same rejection, they grounded me for a month for not studying hard enough. My grandfather, my father's father, lived about an hour away from us. He was the only one who seemed to notice how this treatment affected me. He would visit occasionally, and during those visits, he was the only one who asked about my interests rather than my grades. He remembered small details about my hobbies and always brought me books about computers, which I loved. When I was 16, during summer break, my grandfather invited me to stay with him. Those 3 months were eye-opening. For the first time, I experienced what it felt like to live in a supportive environment. He didn't compare me to anyone. When I showed interest in programming, he bought me my first proper computer. He attended my summer league basketball games and cheered for me whether we won or lost. More importantly, he listened. He let me talk about how I felt without dismissing my feelings or telling me I was too sensitive. He shared stories about his own struggles and taught me that it's okay to choose a different path than what others expect. When school was about to start, I couldn't bear the thought of going back home. The anxiety of returning to that toxic environment made me physically sick. I gathered my courage and talked to my grandfather about it. Without hesitation, he offered to let me live with him permanently. He said he had plenty of room and would be happy to have me. When I told my parents, their reaction confirmed everything. My mother just said, "If you think you'll do better there, then go." She didn't even look sad or try to convince me to stay. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. He just grunted and said, "Do whatever you want." I packed my things that very day. Neither of them helped me pack or came to see my room one last time. My mother was busy on the phone telling relatives how I was abandoning them. Living with my grandfather changed my life completely. He encouraged me to pursue computer science even though my parents had decided I should become a doctor like my cousin. He helped me research colleges and programs. When I worried about tuition, he sat me down and showed me how he had been saving for my education since I was born. I worked part-time jobs at local computer repair shops to help with expenses and gain experience. Unlike my parents, my grandfather saw this as initiative rather than a distraction from studies. He would often bring me dinner at work when I had late shifts and helped me manage my time between work and studies. During my 4 years of college, my parents never called or visited. They didn't send birthday cards or ask how I was doing. They showed up at my graduation only because my grandfather invited them. Even there, they managed to hurt me. While other parents were taking photos and hugging their kids, mine spent the time talking about how my cousin had gotten into a prestigious medical school. After graduation, I got a job at a tech startup. The pay wasn't great, but I was learning invaluable skills. My parents scoffed at my starting salary, comparing it to what my cousin would make as a doctor. My grandfather, however, saw the potential. He told me to be patient and learn everything I could. 3 years ago, I decided to start my own software company. I had noticed a gap in the market for specialized business management software. When I shared my business plan with my grandfather, he not only encouraged me but also invested a significant portion of his savings to help me get started. He said it wasn't a loan but an investment in my future. He believed in me more than anyone ever had. The early days of the business were tough. There were times I worked 18-hour days, sleeping on the office couch. Through it all, my grandfather was there, bringing me food, offering advice, and most importantly, believing in me. Last year, everything changed when we landed some major contracts. Suddenly, my small company was being noticed. Tech magazines started writing about us, and that's how my parents discovered my success. After 5 years of complete silence, they started calling. Acting like nothing had happened, they talked about family gatherings I had missed and how I should visit more often. I kept our conversations short and formal. 6 months ago, my grandfather passed away. He left me a significant portion of his estate in his will, saying I was the son he never had. I miss him terribly every day. My parents didn't even attend his funeral because they were on a cruise with my cousin's family. 2 weeks ago, my mother called crying about their financial struggles. My father's business wasn't doing well, and they had taken loans to help my cousin set up his medical practice. She said since I was doing so well, I should help them with monthly payments. According to her, I owed everything to them for giving birth to me and raising me until I was 16. I hung up the phone. My wife, 28F, who I met in college, thinks I should help them because they're still my parents. But all I can remember is years of emotional abuse, constant comparisons, and how they abandoned me without a second thought. I haven't replied to any of their messages. My cousin called to tell me I was being heartless and that family should help family. I blocked his number too. Am I wrong for not wanting to help the people who never helped me? Update 1. Thank you everyone for your supportive comments. Many of you asked for updates, so here's what happened in the last 2 weeks. Last Thursday, my parents showed up at my office unannounced. My head of security called me around 11 a.m. because they were causing a scene in the lobby. Through the security cameras, I could see my father yelling at the receptionist about how he had a right to see his son. My mother was sitting in one of the lobby chairs, crying loudly and telling everyone who walked past about her ungrateful son who had abandoned them. Some of my employees were gathering around, watching the spectacle. I was in the middle of an important client meeting, but I had to excuse myself to deal with the situation. When I got to the lobby, my father's entire demeanor changed instantly. He put on this big smile and tried to hug me like we were a happy family. I stepped back, maintaining my distance. The hurt look on his face seemed practiced, as if he had rehearsed this moment. My father started talking about how proud they were of my success. He said they always knew I had it in me, conveniently forgetting all the times he told me I would amount to nothing. My mother joined in, still dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, nodding along to everything he said. They talked about how everyone in their social circle was discussing my success and how happy they were to be known as my parents. Then came their real reason for visiting. They didn't just want help, they wanted $15,000 monthly to maintain their lifestyle. My father pulled out a paper where he had itemized their monthly expenses, including country club memberships and luxury car payments. They had apparently been telling all their friends and relatives that I was already supporting them financially. My father said they needed to keep up appearances in their social circle now that people knew about my success. He even brought up my cousin again, saying how he gives 30% of his earnings to his parents. My father said that since I was making more money, I should give them at least $15,000. He acted like this was a completely reasonable request, as if he was doing me a favor by only asking for that much. When I refused, my father's friendly mask slipped. His face turned red with anger, reminding me of all the times he would lose his temper during my childhood. He started yelling about how ungrateful I was and listing all the sacrifices they had made for me. When I asked him to name these sacrifices, he couldn't give me a single example. Instead, he deflected by talking about how expensive raising a child is. My mother tried a different approach. She went into graphic details about her difficult pregnancy with me, how she had suffered morning sickness for months, and how she had given up her promising career as a bank teller to raise me. I reminded her about how she used to tell relatives that I was a difficult child who had ruined her life. She acted like she didn't remember saying those things. The situation got worse when they brought up my grandfather. My father claimed that my grandfather had manipulated me against them out of spite. He said my grandfather had always been controlling and that taking me in was his way of punishing them. According to my father, my grandfather had stolen his son just to prove a point. That's when I lost my composure. I told them exactly how my grandfather had been there for me when they weren't. I reminded them of all the school events he attended that they skipped, how he helped me with homework while they were busy praising my cousin, and how he actually cared about my mental health instead of calling me oversensitive. I brought up how they didn't even attend his funeral because they were too busy on a cruise with my cousin's family. When they refused to leave, I had security escort them out. My father shouted threats the whole way, saying he would tell everyone how badly I treat my parents. My mother wailed dramatically about having a heart attack, but she seemed fine once they reached their car. True to their word, they started a social media campaign against me. They posted long messages about their ungrateful son who abandoned them and now refuses to help in their time of need. Some relatives I haven't heard from in years started calling and messaging me about family duties and responsibilities. I blocked them all. My wife, who had been unsure about my decision before, now fully understands why I don't want to help them. She saw their true colors during this incident and admitted she was wrong to push me to help them. Yesterday, my cousin's wife reached out privately through LinkedIn. She revealed that my cousin's medical practice isn't nearly as successful as everyone believes. Apparently, he's struggling to get patients and my parents have been helping him financially for the past 2 years. That's why they're in debt now. She asked me not to tell anyone as they're trying to keep up appearances. I've instructed my legal team to send them a cease and desist letter regarding their defamatory social media posts. I've also increased security at both my office and home, and instructed my staff not to let them in under any circumstances. Some of you suggested therapy to deal with this situation, but honestly, I've made peace with who they are. My grandfather helped me understand that their behavior was about their own insecurities, not my worth. Their recent actions just confirm that nothing has changed. Update 2. Thanks for all the support on my previous posts. Things have gotten more complicated, and I need to share what's happening. My parents found out about the inheritance my grandfather left me. My aunt, father's sister, who helped handle some of my grandfather's paperwork, accidentally mentioned it to them during a family gathering. Now they've convinced themselves they deserve a portion of it because they're his son's family. Last week, I received a formal letter from their lawyer demanding 40% of my inheritance. Their argument is that my grandfather stole me from them and destroyed their family unit, so they deserve compensation for emotional damages and loss of family relationship. They actually put a dollar amount on their emotional suffering, $2.5 million. The letter also claimed that my grandfather had deliberately alienated me from them to hurt my father. They're saying he manipulated a minor, me at 16, into abandoning his parents, causing them years of depression and social embarrassment. They even listed examples of social events they couldn't attend because people would ask about me. The most absurd part is that they're also demanding returns from the initial investment my grandfather made in my company. According to their lawyer, since my grandfather was their father, that investment money should have been offered to them first. My father is claiming that my grandfather manipulated him out of his rightful inheritance by investing in my business instead of giving the money to him. My cousin showed up at my office yesterday, acting like a mediator. He talked about family unity and how money shouldn't come between blood relatives. Then he let slip that my parents had promised him 25% of whatever they get from me. That explained his sudden interest in resolving this family dispute. He tried to make it sound reasonable, saying I was wealthy enough to spare a few $1,000,000 for family peace. When I refused, he started listing all the times my parents had helped him, implying I owed them for supporting my cousin when they should have been supporting me. I had a meeting with my lawyer about their claims. She actually laughed while reading their demand letter. She explained that their claims have absolutely no legal standing. My grandfather's will is ironclad, and they can't contest it since they weren't mentioned in it at all. The investment in my company was properly documented as a business transaction with all the necessary paperwork. While going through some old papers, I found letters my grandfather had written to my father. He had offered to invest in my father's business multiple times, but my father had refused because he didn't want to be controlled by his father's money. Yet now they want the money he gave me. My aunt called me crying and apologizing for revealing the inheritance information. She didn't know they would react this way. She told me how my parents had been spreading rumors in the family about my grandfather manipulating me against them. She finally had enough and spoke up at a family dinner, telling everyone about how they had treated me growing up and how they never once tried to contact me during college. After hearing the full story, several family members who had been pressuring me to help my parents have backed off. Some even apologized for believing my parents' version of events. To honor my grandfather's memory and show that this isn't about money for me, I've decided to donate 20% of my inheritance to a children's education charity in his name. He always believed in helping others get an education, and I want to continue his legacy. My lawyers sent them a formal response yesterday, rejecting all their claims and warning them that any further harassment would result in legal action. She also advised me to keep documenting all their attempts to contact me or spread false information. I'll update again if there are any major developments, but for now, I'm focusing on running my company and preparing for my wife's pregnancy. We just found out we're expecting, and I want to be the kind of parent my grandfather was to me. Update 3. Hello everyone. This will probably be my final update as I've reached a point where I need to close this chapter of my life. My parents made one last desperate attempt to get money from me. They started telling people in our community that my grandfather had actually stolen money from them years ago and invested it in my company without their permission. When that didn't gain any traction, they showed up uninvited at my wife's baby shower last weekend. The baby shower was at our new house, and somehow they found out about it through distant relatives. They walked in during the gift opening ceremony, causing my wife to nearly drop the present she was holding. My mother immediately started crying and saying how cruel we were for not inviting the baby's grandparents. My father stood in the middle of our living room and started telling all our guests about how I had stolen their inheritance and was now keeping their grandchild away from them. My mother tried to touch my wife's belly multiple times, making her very uncomfortable. When my wife moved away, my mother started wailing about how she had dreamt of being a grandmother her whole life. I asked them to leave, but they refused. My father then threatened to sue for grandparents' rights once the baby was born. He claimed they would get mandatory visitation rights and would tell our child how cruel and heartless I was to them. My lawyer later confirmed they have absolutely no case for grandparents' rights since they never had an established relationship with me or my child. She helped me file for a restraining order, which was granted due to their harassment at the baby shower. The final straw came when they contacted Johnson Technologies, my company's biggest client. They sent an email claiming I had stolen their investment money to start the company and that they would be taking legal action. Fortunately, my client knew better and forwarded me the email immediately. I've now completely cut all possible contact with them. We moved to a new house in a gated community where they can't reach us. Only a select few people have our new address. My company continues to grow, we're expanding to 2 new countries next year, and our revenue has tripled since last quarter. My cousin called last week with surprising news. Our parents are now pressuring him more than ever to be successful since they lost their chance with me. He said they're demanding he take more patients and raise his fees to make more money. He actually apologized for the way he treated me growing up and admitted that he now understands how toxic our parents are. I wished him well but told him I prefer to keep my distance from all family drama. As for the baby, we found out we're having a boy. My wife suggested we name him after my grandfather, and it felt perfect. Sometimes I wish my grandfather was here to meet his great-grandson, but I know he'd be proud of how I've handled everything. He taught me that standing up for yourself isn't being disrespectful, it's being true to who you are. To everyone who supported me through this journey, thank you. Your comments helped me stay strong when I doubted my decisions. I'm at peace with my choices now. My grandfather showed me that sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. This will be my last update unless something major happens, which I sincerely hope won't be the case. My focus now is on being the best father I can be and continuing my grandfather's legacy of unconditional love and support.